the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASSAN, has declared a nationwide strike, as confirmed by their president, Festus Osifo, over the inability of the union and the federal government to reach an agreement on the Integrated Personal Payroll Information System, IPPIS, and unpaid arrears to members. Fears of fuel scarcity across the country are heightened with this development. The industrial action follows the inability of the federal government of Nigeria to address issues raised by the oil and gas workers. The union has since given the government a 7-day ultimatum in a statement issued, penultimate, to respond to the issues tabled. So what? Joining... Right, we're looking at the union members there. Joining me to discuss this is the former president of the Trade Union Congress and former president of PENGASSAN, Comrade Peter Esele. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us. PENGASSAN has joined forces with ASU, Academic Staff Union of Universities, in the ongoing gridlock with the federal government of Nigeria over the IPPIS. Why is there so much headbutting over this system?
Thank you for having me. I don't really think the way ASU is going about it and the way PENGASSAN is going about it are at par. PENGASSAN's own case in all of this is just pay our members, where those of ASU, I think federal government just says he wants to have a roll call. But PENGASSAN's own position is pay our members. Some of our members in government agencies have not collected their salaries in the last 3 months. So that is what PENGASSAN is after.
All right, and can you give us an update on any of the deliberations between PENGASSAN and the federal government so far?
I think my source within PENGASSAN says everything is almost resolved. I think I was reading in some national dailies today that is deadlock, but I can tell you categorically that is not deadlock. I think they've been able to resolve majority of the issues, and I think the National Secretariat of PENGASSAN will soon be addressing the country on the outcome of their deliberations.
Okay, well, that's good, because Nooping, the Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, has reported that they said they're not going to join in the strike. Would that have complicated matters for PENGASSAN and given the federal government an advantage in their talks?
Not at all, because the person who made that statement is not at the top echelon. When it comes to strike of this magnitude, if you hear from the president or you hear from the general secretary, and if you also read the body of the language of what you are quoting, the body is that federal government, let me quote the treasurer who made that comment, and he said, federal government should address the concerns that PENGASSAN is putting forward, or else Nooping would follow in a sympathy strike. So I think that is very clear. And one thing people don't also understand, Nooping members today are potential PENGASSAN members tomorrow. So the relationship is stronger than as people understand. And if you also look at it, Nooping is responsible for moving of the product, while PENGASSAN is responsible for getting the product into the tank. So if the product is not in a tank, how do you move the product? So there's a division of labor, and their relationship is symbiotic. One can't do without the other.
Great. And so okay, good. So you've clarified that as far as the two are concerned, PENGASSAN and Nooping, there's unity between both bodies.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Now, with where the economy is now, can Nigeria afford another fuel scarcity at this time, dealing with a pandemic, a weakened economy? Is that at the top of the minds of both parties as they continue their deliberations?
One thing you must know is that PENGASSAN is a responsible organization. They are not guys who have power without control. They have powers and they have control, and they also must be responsible. And that is why you have it. They call these strikes is on Monday, and it's Thursday today. You don't have any fuel scarcity because some of those key PENGASSAN members who are responsible for that are doing all that they have to do. And then you also have the GMD of NNPC, who incidentally was a former national vice president of PENGASSAN. So you also have Esprit de Corps playing out there, and they just won't throw the country under the bus.
Okay, great. Now, our members of PENGASSAN, is this forefront in their minds of the revenue challenges facing Nigeria? Because it just seems like year after year after year, there's a standoff over payments and arrears, salaries, and so on and so forth. The revenue challenges that Nigeria is facing, we've seen the budget presentation, the deficit, the loans, what has to be done to plug it. Is that something that they are aware of and recognize?
Of course, unions recognize all of this. But one thing you also have to talk about is that they also deserve to get their salary. If you look at members of PENGASSAN in DPRO, for example, they've not been paid for 3 months. And you have PPPRO, they've also not been paid for 3 months. And then you have National Nigerian Nuclear Regulatory Agency, NNROA, they've not collected the allowances and various allowances for the past 22 months. So how do you expect them to feel? But those you are talking about, the policy makers, they collect their salary. Nobody has ever heard that the governor is being owed a salary or a president or a permanent secretary. So we need to find this balance. Workers need to get paid. Yes, there are challenges. If PENGASSAN is not being responsible, by now you are going to have queues all over, you're going to have shortage of product. You don't have anything like that. What they've just done is, okay, let's shut down the offices while we continue to talk.
Wow. And okay, so I'm glad you mentioned the need for some kind of balance. So what is that balance? Is it that Nigeria has to make more money, or the amount of people that the government is paying, that number has to shrink? Where do you think the balance is, so that in 2021 we're not having the same conversation again?
No, now, the government is even not saying that they don't have money to pay. From the dialogue that went on, the issue that they have is that the new technology they are bringing on, which they call IPPIS, is where they are having fundamental challenges. So that we need to clarify that. Then number two, you are going to talk about the workers. You are looking at, okay, do we have too many workers? And I think if you are going to do that, it has to come from top to the bottom. PENGASSAN, for example, if you want to disengage a PENGASSAN member, PENGASSAN is not going to come and fight you. But there are rules to that. There's a collective bargaining agreement. There are conditions of service. If you want to do that, you go by that. And once you go by that, the union don't have to come and fight you. What the union wants is, let's respect the principle of tripartism, which is, before you go ahead to do whatever you want to do, all three parties need to meet and look at what is on ground. And whatever agreement that is binding the three parties, which is government, employers, and employees, are followed to the letter. It's only when one of the parties has no respect for that agreement that you always have issues like, we're going to go on strike. Nobody knows that when you see PENGASSAN come out to talk, you know that there is breakdown. This issue that we are talking about, I'm aware that it's been on the table for over 1 month. Suddenly they strike, they call a strike, and suddenly in 48 hours after they call the strike, the whole issue is resolved. So it tells you there are areas that we need to look at. There are still sticking points, but I'll tell you the sticking point is not as difficult as what was on the ground. But let's just wait for the national president of PENGASSAN to address the country later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, in our prior segment, we're talking about consulting firm PwC cutting down its oil forecast. The International Energy Agency also cutting its oil forecast. Does the outlook for oil worry, in a minute or so, if you can briefly, the outlook for oil, does it worry you?
It does worry me. It does worry me because that's virtually what the economy of the country depends on. But now that we have, it does worry me. But again, I'm also very optimistic. Why am I optimistic? You have Pfizer say they have a vaccine that has 90% efficacy. So once we have that coming up, hopefully they said they will be able to get about 50 million vaccine out before the end of the year. So if you have that, you expect that to go to North America for a start. And they said by 2021, before the end of 2021, they are looking at getting over up to 5 billion vaccine. So with all of that coming up, because we all know that this economic mess that we find ourselves is a fallout from COVID-19. So I am still very optimistic that yes, there's going to be a downturn, and I expect the government to now also go ahead and also slash its recurrent expenditure. Too many political office holders, so we also need to start from there. So, but I'll still see the glass as half full rather than half empty.
All right, former PENGASSAN President, Comrade Peter Esele, thank you so much for joining us to discuss the latest in the deliberations between the union and the federal government. Appreciate your insights.